Hello, hello. Welcome to the Five Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. I interview the top commercial real estate investors and industry experts so you can learn from their experiences. So if you're an investor, a high W-2 earner, or real estate or tech sales professional that wants to invest in real estate without having to manage properties or leave your day job, then this podcast is for you. Or if you're already investing in real estate, but you're doing it part-time and you want to become a full-time multifamily or full-time commercial real estate investor, this podcast is for you too. You're going to learn a ton. You will learn from real-life multifamily investors and other professionals in the industry. They're going to share their blueprints for success, and I'm super excited that you're here. So I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, hello. Abel Pacheco here, your host for the Five Talents Podcast. We are super excited today. We have just an amazing guest, Mr. Hunter Thompson. Hunter, thank you very much for joining the show.
Thanks again. Honored to be on.
Man, you are, it's a privilege to have you on our show. It's, just an amazing opportunity to speak with somebody with your background. For those that don't know, Hunter Thompson, I think he's got one of those reputation that definitely precedes him. He probably doesn't need an introduction, but I'm going to say it anyway. So you know a little bit about why you should grab a pen and a piece of paper. If you are somewhere that you're listening to this podcast in a stationary position, if you're running or on the road or something, man, when you get home, you should probably rewind. I think it'll be valuable. But Mr. Hunter Thompson, he's a full-time real estate investor. He's founder of Asym Capital. This private equity firm is based in Los Angeles, California. So, and really since founding Asym Capital, he's raised more than $35 million. So let me say that again, raised $35 million, and they purchased more than $90 million of commercial real estate across a variety of asset classes. And he's the author of Raising Capital for Real Estate. You'll recognize it, blue, multiple shades of blue, really nice book. How to attract investors, establish credibility, and fund deals. And then he's also the host of Cash Flow Connections. It's a real estate podcast. It's frequently listed, some of the top 200 investing podcasts in iTunes. Amazing background. But Hunter, normally I would imagine a lot of these shows, you kind of start with your background. You've done a ton of podcast interviews. For anybody that really wants to dig in a little bit more of your beginnings, they can catch any number of them. Let's start with what you're doing today, man. What are you up to?
Yeah. So again, I appreciate that. Like you said, you could just Google around, you'll find a lot of interviews that I've done on a variety of different topics. But something that has happened recently, and what I'm really focusing on now, is we just finished a raise, and it was one of our most successful raises to date. And we raised about $5.5 million in 30 days. And I spent a lot of my time focusing on real estate and capital raising and investor relations, et cetera. But I also want to ensure that the marketing side of my business is firing on all cylinders as well, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how good I am or supposedly good I am at real estate or supposedly good I am at raising money. If nobody knows about me, then that skill is useless. So whenever something happens in my life, I'm trying to pay attention with two eyes, one focusing on what I'm doing and the other focusing on what is an interesting angle about this so I can create something compelling from a marketing standpoint. Mm-hmm. And I have raised about $5 million in 72 hours before, but it didn't really click. The 30 days number clicked because it, again, doesn't matter how much money you can raise if you can't confidently do it within a 30 or 60 day period, you're going to miss out on the deal. It's going to slip through escrow. It's going to get into the hands of your competitors. And so that 30 days window, I said, okay, this is really interesting, because if you can raise $5 million in 30 days and you use debt financing, as we frequently do in commercial real estate, you can purchase a $15 million piece of property. And $15 million is consequential. I mean, that's where the elite non-institutional players are purchasing, 150 unit, 200 unit multifamily apartments. And if you can purchase a $15 million property, you are unquestionably in that elite level of real estate investors. Now, few people make it to that level, but there are a couple of strategies that everyone is implementing that can allow you to do that. And so I thought about it. I said, okay, look, there's so many people out there that are eager in learning this. I could probably create a summit or a conference and talk about my strategies, But why not create a summit where each speaker speaks about one particular strategy, and I can get detailed into that particular strategy, so I can not just learn about their background and why they like real estate and are they passive versus active, but literally question 4, 5, and 6 about things like how to be a public speaker, how to write compelling blogs, how to do email marketing. Those are 3 different strategies. And to have a 30-minute interview with someone who's raised, 10, 20, $30 million just about that one particular strategy, I found that very, very interesting. So that's what we created. It's the 5 million in 30 days summit. And you can learn
Yeah.
more about that at 5millionin30days.com. And it's a free summit, so you're going to get more than what you pay for no matter what.
More than
But
what you pay.
anyway,
The
I'm really
value is
excited about
already
it.
built in, man. The value is
100%.
already built in. Well, that's a good. It's a good name and good strategy. I love the fact that everyone's got their own 2 cents to throw in. Everyone comes from a different paradigm, a different background, probably different markets, different acquisition, different maybe asset classes too within your within your market. It's still multifamily or commercial real estate. We're looking for numbers of doors, and how did I raise $3 million? How did I raise 4? How did I raise 5? How so that's good, man. That's awesome. When's, so roughly speaking, when's the dates if you don't have hard dates set?
Yeah, so it's January 6th through the 8th.
Okay.
And it's interesting because these are pre-recorded interviews that are going to be available for 24 hours.
Okay.
So on the 6th, you get all this content dumped and you have 24 hours to watch it. Because I feel like I have so many things going on, so many different projects I'm working on, but the only way I'm able to accomplish anything that's consequential is significant time blocks. So I want to challenge people. If you're going to go through the time of actually trying to learn these challenging and complicated and potentially very lucrative concepts, only do it in increments of 90 to 180 minutes. And if you just don't answer your phone, don't answer your email, don't answer anything, and just focus exclusively on this one thing, that's the actual thing that can help your business move forward. But unfortunately, not enough people take that advice and they find themselves constantly distracted, constantly focusing on other things and worrying about being reactive, when the thing that actually is going to help them move their business in the right direction requires dedication, focus, and a lack of distractions.
Yeah, 100%. I took some advice that you had given on a podcast, and then I read it again, and probably heard you once or twice again on blocking time schedules or creating one task, one mission for the day. I think the one that resonated was like create 100 blog articles and titles and topics, and then go research everyone, and having that time block. Well, the podcast is new for us, so if those for those listening, I think we've gotten our first 50 episodes ish out there pretty quickly. But the way we're doing that is like a Tuesday and a Thursday, record all day long, smash them in there, and then I have Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays to do other to other things. And I got that from, I think it was originally, I'm sure there's other people that have said it, but yours just resonated with me. And I was like, this is the time to go. So the time blocking is key, man. And I like the focus for your strategy and how you're doing it, and the 90 to 180 minutes. So let's start here, digging in. What was this $5 million raise in 30 days versus, man, you've completed $5 million in 72 hours. What was it, the aha moment? What was the golden nugget or the insight that we should take from that?
Well, I think that a lot of people think about themselves first because that's just the reality of being a human being. But that's not the way to think about capital raising. To think about capital raising, you're going to have a lot of challenges raising capital if you view yourself at the middle of the circle and you view yourself going out into the world trying to convert people into investors and real estate investors and get them to give you their hard-earned 50,000, 100,000, $250,000.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The challenging part about this is that it can work, and that can send you down a path that's very challenging to overcome. Because if you go out to your closest, wealthiest friends,
Mm-hmm.
you've got some rich uncle that you haven't talked to in 5 years, you reach out to them and he gives you your first $50,000. You may be able to get to $250,000, $500,000 by doing that. But those individuals are investing with you not because of your credibility in the real estate sector, but because they love you, they trust you, you have a
Mm-hmm.
pre-existing relationship with them.
Mm-hmm.
So the real question is, in 3 months or 6 months, when you have a bigger, better deal and you go to raise money from them, what are they going to say?
Yeah.
And I've done this, by the way, and the answer is, what happened to the first $50,000? Is it gone? Like, what's going on? Is this a fraud? Is this a Ponzi scheme? Why do you need more money? So you've got to stop thinking about going around trying to chase investors and put yourself in a position so you never have to. And the way that I do this is by creating a very scalable, replicatable lead nurture and lead attraction system that works much more like a funnel, where there's 4 steps to the funnel: the attract phase, which we can talk about in a second, the educate and nurture phase is 2 and 3, and then the close phase, which is kind of, getting the money across the finish line. The problem is that most people spend all of their time focusing on the close. They read all the Grant Cardone books and all the Oren Klaff books, which can help you get an increase in your close ratio, but the ratio is meaningless compared to the top of the funnel. I don't want to present in front of 10 people. I want to present in front of 10,000. And all of my effort goes into getting from 1 to 10,000, if I'm at 10,000, to get to 100,000. And we can talk about the math and why that makes sense, but that's what the summit is about. It's a 3-day summit where the attract, educate, nurture, and close system is broken down into various strategies you implement within those different structures.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, yeah, I definitely want to dig more into this because, well, there's a number of reasons, but the one thing that I keep thinking about whenever I hear funnel, so I spent, probably about 13 years in tech sales. I've been a sales guy for 20 plus years, and it's always been the funnel. And what I think some people that maybe are outside of sales don't realize is that you can improve your close ratio with negotiating tactics, your strategies. I can, say all the right thing. I can present more crisp than someone else, right? And I can do those things, and I can make my close rate 50%, 60%, which is pretty insane, right? It's 60, 70%.
Very high.
It's crazy high. But if I only had, 10 people to pitch it to, I may only have 7 investors at this insane close rate, where I can go the opposite route. And if I'm literally looking at a funnel and I have 10,000 people at the top of that funnel, but my close rate is horrible, it doesn't matter, because as long as I'm filling the top of funnel, I will have even a, 5% close rate is going to be way greater, on the 10,000, top of funnel people that you're coming in, and, you're attracting, you're educating, you're nurturing, helping them first. And I like the way that you put it is, when you have yourself in the center, how much am I going to make? What's my win? What does this mean for me, versus how can I help other people understand how they can create financial freedom, wealth creation, that kind of stuff. It just falls in line. This is attracting them, educate them, and nurturing them. And then obviously the close is way easier, which some people, didn't realize that either. It's not selling, right? You're doing the opposite. So tell us more about, this process, like dig into some of the numbers and the stats that you've kind of, recognized and seen in your business.
Well, I'll say this. Number one, thinking about the framework that I just outlined, that should be a quantum leap for a lot of capital raisers. That it's not about closing strategies. It's about how good you are at attracting leads, converting those leads into potential buyers on your email list, nurturing those leads and educating those leads. And then by the time you send out a deal, boom, $5 million appears in a bank account. That's like magic. And by the way, it's the most lucrative and consistently sought after skill in the entire real estate sector.
Agreed.
Now, some of you may want to argue with that, but it's not really consequential. I've seen it. It's the one thing that if you can do that magic trick, you will always have a place in this business.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So within that framework, though, there's something really important. Your list, your email list, is such a critical determiner of the scalability of your portfolio. And I learned this lesson far later than I wish I had. So if you're doing a lot of work in the podcast world, for example, which has caught fire recently and for good reason, you should be consistently doing things to bring people off the podcast platform and into your list. So you have to be creating content, which is requiring their email address to do that. And then you can go. So like, for example, right now, we created a really cool webinar about whether or not investors should be doing deals in the wake of COVID. And I had 3 panelists come. I was asking the questions, and each panelist represented $1 billion of real estate or more. Now, people want to hear that. So we're running an ad on our podcast right now to say, go watch this free webinar. Just give us your email address. Now, most of the people that are watching the webinar, they're already on our email, but every now and then someone comes through. And when I mean every now and then, I mean, tens of people every single day, if not more. So just focusing on your list itself is really critical, because measure what matters, right? Every day you want to see that number increase. I'll give you another tip with that. A lot of people make the mistake of putting a call to action on their website that requires far more credibility than they have, and then most people are going to have with them when they go to their site. So what I mean by that is, if your call to action on your site is a call, like a 20-minute call, for example, an introductory call, that requires, how hard it is to get a 20-minute call with me? Like, it's basically impossible to do that on your schedule. It's just not going to happen. And that's the case with most accredited investors that are going to be able to invest $200,000 with you. So what you need to do, and then again, the next level with this, and by the way, I wrote my book. While this is still evolving, the world of marketing is always evolving, but I focused on ebooks in my book, which is a very, very powerful mechanism. But I will say that recently you've had a lot of success not requiring someone to spend 30 or 45 minutes reading a book, but to give them just instant credibility. So I'm talking about a due diligence checklist, or 10 things you need to know about passive investing, or multifamily versus self-storage. Just bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. They open it up, they download it, they give you the email address, pow, it pops up in their email, and they know instantly this person knows what I'm talking about. Now, all my guard is off. I'm going to open the next email that the person sends me. And by the way, in email 2 or 3, you can say, guess what? We're such a great company. Just because you opted in, now here's the free ebook that's going to take you 30 minutes to read. And the likelihood that people are going to use it are far greater, because the credibility is already through the roof. Mm-hmm. So that's one piece of the structure, right? The attract stage, how to get that. And you can do other things as far as, premium content, hard to find content, as opposed to the audio. You can transcribe things and say, for the transcriptions, put your email address in here. But I'm trying to give you as much content as quickly as possible. Those are a couple of things that I would do to convert, let's say, podcast listeners to your email.
It's great. It's fantastic. It's, we in this year of COVID, kind of following some of the, the bullet points that you laid out for success. I go, well, this is one of the most successful people. Let me go figure out how to just implement. We wrote our first, our ebook, how to, what is, I don't even remember the dang name of the book now that I'm thinking about. It's funny. Tackling Commercial Multifamily Real Estate the Easy Way. And it's really, it's like my guide, how I invested into $93 million worth of real estate passively. So I kind of, I go, well, I'm an expert in that. From my perspective, let me send that out there. And we wrote up a bunch of, content. And I think, and after I put it together, I go, man, this is really a lot of pages, like 60 something pages. So we put it all together, and that's what we have on our podcast. So you've heard this a bunch of times, and really because I want to educate or attract investors, provide as much education as possible. That's kind of always been my MO. A lot of people have helped me, and I want to help others. So help the passive investors listening to this, so they just process all of this stuff, because they're like, well, I'm a passive investor. You're attracting me. You're talking to me about a lead list and this, and how should the passive investor process all of this stuff? Give us a couple nuggets. And I'm a passive investor myself, so I'm like, I want to make sure I get the best knowledge from the right sources.
Yeah, no, look, I really appreciate that. And first of all, I'll tell you this, the concept of passive investing, that's something that has not been popularized until the last 10 years. Previously, passive investing was mostly thought of as just a Ponzi scheme. It's too good to be true. You put up your $50,000, and not only are you going to get an 8% return, you could even get more than that when the asset is sold. That is so wildly outside of the realm of most people's purview when it comes to investing that most attorneys 10 years ago would say that's just going to be a lie, a fraud.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot that's changed since then. From a structural standpoint, the Jobs Act, which allowed people to publicly solicit investors for real estate transactions online, opened up a new stream of potential capital investment. And it's something that we're all the benefactors of. But because of that influx of interest, we're investors, right? So we try to be counter-cyclical. So we see a bunch of people starting to passively invest. We start to think, oh, there must be a bubble. But you've got to get out of your echo chamber to see the totality of what's going on. From a macroeconomic standpoint, there's somewhere between a 12 and $15 trillion negative interest rate bond market. That's where there's a glut. There is an overwhelming tsunami of negative interest rate bonds. That means that you're in one of the largest wealth manager firms in the world and you've got the meeting with 8 people and someone goes, hey, I got a great investment opportunity. We're only going to lose 1.5% a year. And they're in Japanese bonds. And everyone else in the room goes, he's a genius. Give him a bonus. That's the reality when you look at things. So all of this interest is coming. So why I'm saying this is that if you're a passive investor, you know that term and you're familiar with people like myself or other thought leaders in the space, and you understand due diligence and you're starting to create networks of high quality institutional operators, you've got something that billions of people are going to be interested in over the next 10 years. Mm-hmm. So we're hearing this term come up more and more, the hybrid approach to investing, which I'm a huge proponent of, which is where you can take the fact that you know about conducting due diligence. You've got the Rolodex of contacts. You don't want to be an operator, but you can connect people to operators. Mm-hmm. And there's many ways you can do this. You can be a placement agent. You can be a registered investment advisor. You can be a due diligence consultant. You can be a marketing consultant for operators or people that want to be operators. And that way you can get compensated without actually implementing the business plan. So that ebook you gave is a great example where you're trying to court other passive investors, but you're a passive investor yourself. Mm-hmm. By the way, I told my friends and family in 2012, this is going to be a business I build. I'm going to act as a placement agent and provide capital to other people's deals. And I'm not going to do the legwork. And my family said, that's not a business. That's make believe.
Oh, I love
and
it.
To a large degree, they were right. It didn't really exist.
Yeah.
But
what year was that? You said 2012?
2012, I was confident that this was going to be the route that I wanted to participate in the sector. But in truth, there wasn't a model for it.
Yeah.
And not enough people had done it. And I'm kind of proud of that, but also you don't have to be an innovator in real estate to be successful, but sometimes you got to understand when to persevere and when to pivot.
Yeah.
So the fact that a lot of people that I love and respect and were not haters were saying, this is not a thing. But I just knew this is so compelling that even smart people think it's a farce. The moment that they realize this is actually real, and this is actually how multi-generational wealth has been created in this country for centuries. It's just that it's only been ultra high net worth people that have access to these deals. The moment that we get access, everything's going to change. And that change took place in 2012.
Yeah. And you know what, I say this probably not as eloquently as you, brother, but in 2012, for those that are listening, they're like, what's the Jobs Act? The Jumpstart a Small Business Act changed 2012. It got implemented in 2013, and it basically opened up these syndication laws, and it created these exemptions for us to use, which we're using today. And it allowed non-accredited investors to come in, 35 limited spots, yada, yada. And also the Regulation D 506C, we can now advertise these deals where, when people said, well, how come no one's, I've had this more than a few times. People go, well, how come not everyone's doing this today? And I go, well, man, the laws just changed like 5, 6, 7 years ago, kind of in practice. So it took them a couple of years just to get it out there. And now we've been using them for 5, 6, 7 years. You were one of the first people that kind of jumped on it or saw that was happening. So that's pretty awesome. That's pretty cool. And it gives, the everyday average Joe, I'm the everyday average Joe, Hunter. Like I made some money, get some good cash, and let's get it to work. Let's get invested, man. I work too hard every single day active capital, let's make it passive, So yeah, man, it's a great mindset. Love it.
100%. And there's so many doctors and lawyers that have $400,000 in a bank account just sitting there.
Sitting there.
And that's going to be changing over the next 10 years. And by the way, one of the reasons that it's been so slow to change, the finance sector is one of the slowest to change, is that the scalability of the stock market and the fact that the bond market is even more scalable. You have $1 billion, you can allocate it tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
That's so potentially lucrative that it gives a huge advantage to very large firms that are paid based on ongoing fees that aren't tied to performance. So what that means is that they can outmarket everybody. I mean, you may know Asym Capital, but when you compare Asym Capital to E-Trade,
Yeah,
there's just no comparison.
uh-huh.
And that's why.
100%. Yeah, and their funnel is much bigger, and
Exactly.
We're trying to do right with our funnel and our funds and our investment, and trying to market. You kind of said at the very beginning, right? Like the business kind of relies on marketing, and this is, talk to any new company, startup situation, or any company that's going out of business. The number one reason that they're either not doing well or going out or having major success is the like sales or conversion of, which gets brought from marketing, top of funnel exposure. If they don't know you that you're there, there's never an opportunity for them to even, know about your services. So yeah, it makes all the sense. Hello. You're listening to the 5 Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. If you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you're serious about achieving financial freedom. Are you ready to create your own path through multifamily investing for yourself and your family? Then I know you're going to appreciate our Investor's Guide to Multifamily Investing. It's titled Tackling Commercial Real Estate the Easy Way. We use this guide to invest ourselves in $93 million worth of real estate. So we're going to show you the basic mechanics of multifamily syndications and how to evaluate your next passive investment opportunity. So the best part, if you subscribe to our podcast now, leave us a review and a rating. I'm going to give you a free copy of our ebook. So please take a moment to do that now. Once you've done that, go to 5tcre.com/ebook, 5tcre.com/ebook. Make sure to let us know you left a review, and we're going to send you a free copy. So thank you so much for subscribing to the 5 Talents Podcast. We really appreciate it. In the world. So you have a lot of, I wrote down already like 3 pages of notes, brother. So thank you. As we're talking through this, help somebody give some, maybe like simplified 1, 2, 3 tactical steps, somebody easy. Like I realize I want to invest passively, never done it before. And I know I want to move forward. I just don't know how. Give me, 2 or 3 simple steps or whatever, make it as simple as possible. Like what the heck do I do, man? How do I make sure that, I'm doing it right?
Okay. So really good question. And I'm going to restructure it to give you what I believe to be the best answer. So
Perfect.
I have been doing this for a decade, and I've got my strategies. I've got my tactics. I've got the apps and the tools and the email templates that I can just give you, but that's not going to get you where you want to go, at least not fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
The only way to accomplish anything significant is to not focus on the tactics and the strategy and the email templates and the apps. The way to get there quickly is to focus on who, not how. That is such a powerful phrase, and I stole it from Dan Sullivan. I'm looking at his book right now that's titled Who, Not How. And the key here is identify the thought leaders in the space that are succeeding, especially exactly in alignment with how you want to be involved in the business. So the operators that you feel from a gut perspective are, you guys would be friends if you knew them. The operators that are talking about theses that make sense from you intuitively. You may be a novice, but you have your inclinations. I know you do, because everyone does, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I come in here and talk about the mobile home park business because it's recession resistant, and the worse the economy does, the more demand there is for mobile home parks, half your audience may think, wow, that sounds really compelling because I may be giving a little bit of the upside up, but the predictability of outcome is greater because it's a recession resistant vehicle. There's going to be some people that are turned off by that. Some people only want to invest in development. Some people only want to invest in hotels, and they're willing to incur the cyclical risks associated with those strategies. And I'm not their guy.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
identify people that you think, okay, this is exactly in alignment with where I want to be in 10 years, and find a way to reach out to them and get them to give you the playbook for their own success. And you can reverse engineer that and take the exact same steps they took along the way to get to where they are today. And that's the
Yeah.
reason I said I was kind of embarrassed about the fact that I had to some degree innovated in the space, but that was very costly and took me years and didn't need to. If I had just been able to find the exact people that were doing exactly what I wanted to do, I could have just done the exact things that they did. So if your goal is to be an excellent passive investor,
Yeah.
find that guy, the ultimate passive investor guy. And by the way, you're listening to a podcast with someone that's presenting himself like that. This may be your guy. So take the opportunity, reach out, and see what steps that they made to get in the position they're in today.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you very much for that, because we say this over and over and over and over again, or I do. I've had my success accelerated to the nth degree because I positioned myself around mentors or coaches, people that were doing exactly what I wanted to do, and I just recreated their steps. And when you for those that are listening that have worked with me in my professional career, we worked IT hosting, and we went from like $5 million in sales to $12 million in sales a year to 24 million to 48. And when I left, I ended my run at $57 million a year in professional IT sales. We sold to Fortune 500, 200 companies, and, pretty big entities. But what I did was I never innovated. Really, I looked around and figured out, hey, who are the most successful people in my role? Who are their, most successful people, mentor, coaches, whatever. And I followed the trail of success. And then I just recreated. Obviously, I made things my own, like my own personality and my own, the way I talk and come across is way different than somebody else. But man, I just, there's a late, the work is already laid out. Let's just go and follow it. So same
100%.
thing is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, exactly. And, I mentioned the summit. We have so many speakers that I look up to and want to be aligned with, and they are going to talk about topics that I am not an expert in, because everyone has their own particular niche.
Yep.
So there's a gentleman named Richard Wilson who owns a company called familyoffices.com. He's got several billionaire clients and hosts frequent annual events that cater to family offices. And he has a whole niche built out where he takes databases of centimillionaires and billionaires and can use just email addresses, LinkedIn addresses, and a couple of little data points and turn those people into $10 million, $30 million investors. Yeah. Now, I don't know much about that. I've got so much time in the day and I can't focus my efforts on this. But if that sounds like something you're going to be interested, he's going to give 30 minutes of the details at the free summit. But more importantly, now I've got Richard Wilson's email address. You know what I mean? So I've been able to attract those people to my funnel because of the platform that I've built. And you can do the same thing, whether you're a passive investor or an active operator.
Yep. So let me write these down because there's multiple points on this, brother. So Hunter, you mentioned a few things. First, Richard Wilson, the author of that Raising Capital book, the other side of it. It's so funny, the world is so small and so big at the same time. I was in a book club, got hosted by some amazing multifamily syndicators, some top guys that I know. And he was invited to our book club. That was our book that we read. So we read it one chapter every week or whatever. And at the end of it, he came and talked to our session, to our group. And we had him in our Zoom conference room, just like we're doing today. And, you have to be able to say yes to some things where you may have been uncomfortable. If you're listening today and you're like, man, I don't know if I could reach out to this individual. I don't know if I could go ask them those questions. Or I don't know if I can, you've got the perfect ideal time to do it. It's COVID. People are not traveling. It's easier to get a hold of people virtually. And it's more like, it's a natural thing. But anyways, we're like, I don't know if I should go to this book club. I guess I'll go. And then all of a sudden we're at the end of the tunnel. Richard Wilson's there and he's given us his time, his nuggets on raising capital. And I'm writing down notes like furiously again. So, this is awesome. Your summit will have a lot of these same investor or same experts in their own area. And man, there's going to be a ton of knowledge, a ton of value. I can already tell. And those are amazing guests. And
Can I actually say something real quick? Because a really important learning
Yeah.
piece there. So
Mhm.
Richard Wilson is known as the family office guy,
Mhm.
right? Because he owns the website. That's how he presents himself. That's the main topic he talks about. Now, he's also written a book about raising money. So have I. But are we competitors? No. Why? Because he's the family office guy, and that's not me. So now we're best friends, right? And I say that virtually. Like I can say, hey, come speak at my thing. I'm not worried about you taking my clients because you're the family office guy. I'm the raising capital through syndications guy. We may be competing at some little micro level, but who cares? So here's the really important takeaway. You should be the blank guy. Yeah. Whatever that means, don't be afraid to lean into that particular niche because you can offer your clients and your listeners so much more than that without it causing a problem as long as you are known. You must be known for it to matter at all. So Richard Wilson can go and talk about all the strategies that I talked about today, but he's still going to be known as the family office guy. Now we've done like half of this podcast on Richard Wilson, which is going to be odd if he ever listens to it. But the really important thing is identify a niche, focus on it. And I'll give you a perfect example. The 5 Talents podcast. That is a branding statement that you're making, but is all you talk about with all your guests only 5 talents? No, but it's just a way to be known.
100%. And, you know what, I'll give you a couple too for those that are listening if I haven't hit it enough. So thank you. I'm going to take your education and just on the spot drop it. So for the 5 talents, it is a parable for Matthew 25 and 14, the parable of the 5 talents with servant, master, servant leaves. And he, puts in charge of 3 different servants, each to their ability. He gives one 5 talents, 1 2, and 1 talent. And back then they say talent is like maybe like $10,000. So it was like 50 grand, 20 grand, and 10 grand. He comes back and he says, hey, to the guy with 5 talents, how'd you do? It's presumably some number of years. And he comes back and says, hey, I took your 5 and I made it 10. And the master says, hey, good, well done, good and faithful servant. He goes to the next guy, two talents. Well, what'd you do with it? I doubled it. Hey, well done, my good and faithful servant. The guy with 1 talent, though, he said, what happened? He comes back and said, well, I didn't want to lose your money. I knew you're a hardworking individual. I didn't want to lose it. I buried it in the ground. Here's your 1 talent back. And the master goes, man, you wicked and lazy servant. You could have at least given this to the money lender who would have paid me interest on this. And, it's a parable, right? So it's talking in parables. You can take it in a multiple different angles, the kingdom of God, your resources, your literal talents. But the parable has to do has to do specifically with a monetary value and what you did with it. And, for the guy that just buried it, he's like, man, dude, at least give it to somebody to put some interest on it. So that's at the source of 5 talents. And then,
very cool.
So that's kind of there. It's, big in my faith, big in my Christianity and who I am and what I do and how I try to be a financial steward for others. But tech sales background, that's kind of what I talk about. I know at funnels, marketing, all the fun stuff for me. But man, thank you very much. For pointing that out, because that's what we need to speak to are the people that are like listening to me because they, enjoy talking to me or hearing myself, right? So, but sure. Also you and Richard, one more time to mention him, centimillionaires. Those are the $100 million and up kind of space, right? So it's amazing. Well, those are all amazing points, man. We've talked about a number of topics. I do want to hit on one. So I told Hunter we have this pre-show, really quick conversation, and I'm talking about Cutco. And I worked at Cutco. He worked at Cutco for a number of years. And if you've heard his beginning story, you'll hear, some of this. But man, tell me about your Cutco experience if you could, because if I haven't said this enough, I also worked at Cutco for some, good number of cycles. But man, tell me about your experience there, what you did, how old were you, and then maybe like how it relates to what you're doing today.
Yeah, well, I mean, going back before Cutco, I always was just fascinated with the concept of money and making money and identifying supply and demand disequilibriums and finding great products and being passionate about it. I mean, these are things that I don't have to fake. I am very, very passionate
Mm-hmm.
about a very few amount of products and services in the world. And when I am, this is like some of my friends make fun of me because when I find it, I like, oh my gosh, I'm the ultimate affiliate marketer, even if I'm not getting paid. So, when I was 5, we used to have parking where I lived with my mom and my dad, right near a very well-known stadium in Memphis, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
And so there would always be a need for parking. And so I was like, well, we can sell our spaces in our parking lot for like $5 or $10 each. And I made my first $100 doing this and was like, whoa, this is super, super powerful. And my mom's like, well, I need like 30% of that because it's like my space. And so I started to understand the concept of owning land versus
Yeah.
using it as a whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of my intro. But then Cutco, the big learning point there was that I didn't do particularly well in school. I did great socially, but I did not get excited about learning at all. I wasn't considered a hard worker at all. And it wasn't until I could drive my own schedule and the amount of income I could make was limitless that I started to be, at least in my own mind, holy crap, like I have the skills that are actually needed in this world to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And that was
Mm-hmm.
exciting. And then, by the way, after college, the insatiable lust for learning new, especially complicated and challenging, but potentially lucrative skills became something I was very enthusiastic about.
Mm-hmm.
So Cutco is kind of the entrance to, look, we've got this system, we got this framework, we have this franchise where you do this exact thing and you're going to have success,
Yeah.
but you don't have to go. You don't need to come to work. You're just not going to make any money if you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened? I was the first one there. I was the one making the appointments. I was the one demanding the referrals. And so, holy crap, now this kid that was slacking off in high school
Yeah.
is leading a branch in sales.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big, big moment for me. And one of the reasons I share this story is that if you are listening to this and you're in high school, you're in college, or at a job where you're feeling like you're not firing all cylinders, it can be very detrimental to your own perceived value. And it could just be that the infrastructure that you're currently in is not allowing you to operate at your highest level of productivity. And nothing could be more blatantly obvious as far as me in academia. Why? Because I don't care at all about knowing a little about a lot of topics. That is not compelling to me. I want to know more than anyone about one topic. And by the way, that's how the economy actually works, because no one wants to hire the guy that's just a generalist. You want to hire the blank guy, which is a good tie into the statement I made earlier about marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. And if you don't know what Cutco is, CUTCO, we sold knives. We did in-home presentations. We started with a list of, maybe friends and family. We called to set up an appointment. We'd go to their house. You'd show them some knives. And these were, when Hunter says affinity for some of the best, I actually have the same exact feeling. That's why I stayed so long at Cutco. That's why I stayed so long at Rackspace. We were selling a very high-end service or product, and I could get behind and say, man, if I go all out and sell this, I know that I deliver something. People will ultimately provide the best, like they'll have overwhelming value, way more than they paid $1,000 set of knives, which they're $1,000 plus. And I guess that's why I love multifamily investing now. Still, it's like, oh, you put in 100K, I'm going to give you way more value than you ever gave me. I love it. It's the same mindset. But we did in-home presentations, and I don't know if you remember the calling hours, but I was a college kid, and they would advise us to wake up at 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. in the morning to make outbound calls to set up appointments, because you'd catch a married couple with kids with a few kids, go before they go to work at 8, and you catch them at 7 a.m. And I was
Right.
like, this is uncomfortable. But you were probably making those calls, and we got appointments. This was the system. This was the plan. Just work it. Just go do it. Don't reinvent the wheel. Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's really powerful. But I mean, honestly, just the concept of doing things that are uncomfortable, that itself is
Mhm.
very, very powerful.
Yeah.
And, a big testament to Cutco's made a lot of very successful entrepreneurs. So big fan of that.
Yeah, 100%. And when you started mentioning time blocking to like, so if you want to put content, you should go, you guys should check out a lot of Hunter's content, all kinds of different platforms. But one of the first ones that I heard was like, go create or go make a list of like 100 topics, blog articles or whatever you should go do. Go look at some of the other, syndicators, and you can get some ideas, but make a list of them, and then slowly but surely knock out 10, 20 at a time, block off a few hours of your day or whatever, and just go hit it. But in the process, you're going to learn, because you're going to create it yourself. You're going to learn through the process and get it out there, and it's like a ton of it. But when you said that, I thought of the coaching and training and education that I would give my sales guys, which is, here's your schedule. They had it on a piece of paper. Block off when you want to go do like your fun time, your work, your school, or your school, family time, whatever. And the rest of the time, this is when you call and make appointments. And then that was it, man. So anyways, that's how I thought about it when I first heard you speak on it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the educate and nurture phase.
Yeah.
Right. So the content creation, whether it be podcast interviews or reverse engineering that into articles that you've written, those are all things that help nurture your leads through the funnel. And it's critical. And one thing that I learned from Joe Fairless, who I'm a big fan of, has been on my show several times, is that different clients are going to be moved emotionally by different senses. And so you want to be able to hit people on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual basis from as many senses as possible. So as an example, you mentioned writing articles, for example. That's one client may really only like to read because they can read super fast, they can skim, whatever. Taking that same article and turning it into a solo podcast may attract a completely different client. And then you've got the articles that are coming out weekly or something. You got the podcasts, which are coming out daily or monthly, depending on your schedule. And then we do an annual conference, which is called the Intelligent Investors Real Estate Conference. You can learn more about that at iirec2021.com. And that's for something in person where people can fly to Los Angeles, see us, meet the operators we invest with, meet us in person. Now, of course, this year it's not in person, but you see how there's so much to this. There's so much effort put into the infrastructure that, this is not an infomercial. In that $5.5 million raise, one investor invested $612 without requesting a phone call with me. Now they're a repeat investor, but I don't know them personally. I don't know them outside of work. So this isn't someone that just loves me, but they may know more about me than some of my best friends, because everything that I've done is to make this highly scalable and replicatable lead nurture and lead capture mechanism. So by the time we send a deal out, they're ready to wire $600,000. That is wild, but pretty insane, it happened.
Right? Yeah, here we go. Well, this is awesome, man. I want to be respectful of your time. Thank you so much for joining us. I don't want to keep you over our allotted time. If anyone wants to get in your world, investors, other partners, somebody looking to get, new mentor or coach by you, et cetera, where's the best place they could go get into your world?
I'll give you two resources. I want to keep it brief. Usually I only give one, but there's two kind of different audiences, and there may be like a hybrid, like I mentioned. So if you're interested in learning how to raise capital, you do not have to be an operator to do this. There are different ways to do it. We'll talk about all those different nuances and regulations and all that. I'm putting together something I'm very, very proud of, which is the summit. It's 5millionin30days.com. The 5 and the 30 are the numbers, and it's free. You have to pay VIP if you want to be able to keep the sessions for life. If you're a passive investor or an operator, definitely check out the Intelligent Investors Real Estate Conference, and that's iirec2021.com. And that's a more robust conference online where you get networking and all this other stuff. And I think the tickets are like $500. So I hope to see you guys there.
That's awesome, man. Is there anything else we haven't asked about, talked about, wanted to bring some exposure to before you go? Just anything in general?
Yeah, I think we covered it, but I cannot harp on this topic enough, which is the who, not how. if you're listening to this, don't just blitz through these podcasts at 2.5 speed. Take the time to get a Rolodex of who you want to act like. Now, there's maybe some people that are like in the A tier that you're not going to be able to jump on a phone call with because like their schedule is just slammed. But you can still reverse engineer the moves that they've made to get in the position that they're in. And the way you do that is to get access to their free or premium content. So like we have a mentorship program, by the way, which is like a very expensive thing where people can actually interface with me directly. But I don't do that for free because I'm just not at that state of my career. But there was a time where I was like, holy crap, this guy wants to talk to me. Wow, I'll do it. And there are plenty of people out there that are growing towards that stage in their career. So listen to this podcast, get the contact information of the people that are guests. And for those that really you see eye to eye, go ahead and do it.
Yeah, right on.
Reach out to them.
Hey, thank you very much. Hunter, it's been amazing. Again, I'm your host, Abel Pacheco, here at the Five Talents Podcast. Please like us, rate us, review, whatever you do on podcasts, and subscribe, rate, and leave a written review. And then for the YouTube, if you're watching this on video later, give us a subscribe also, man. So Hunter, it's been a blast. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon, man.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Five Talents Podcast with your host, myself, Abel Pacheco. Each week, we're going to bring you interviews from industry experts and commercial real estate investors who followed their dreams and achieved massive success. Before you leave, let me ask you a few questions. Did you enjoy this episode? Did you learn something valuable? Was your mind stretched to what's possible and what you can achieve? Do you want other experts just like the one you heard today? If you answered yes to any or all of those questions, then please take a moment to subscribe to the Five Talents Podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and most importantly, leave us a written review. Tell us what you liked, tell us your favorite guest, give us any feedback. I'm excited to learn and improve so you can get a more valuable show. So thank you again for subscribing to the Five Talents Podcast.